Hey everybody, what is going on? It's your boys, this here. Welcome you to the Anarchy Analysis matchup of the week in the LCS lock-in tournament between Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves. Now, the reason I picked this matchup was because it's basically the old Golden Guardians squad, the Monte, Huhi, FBI, and Closer, facing off against the new lineup on the Golden Guardian side and seeing which team is better. Did the new Golden Guardians be trade-ups, or have 100 Thieves basically stolen away the better side? Only time will tell as we load up into Champion Select, where we're gonna look at the picks that are available. As the Champion Select loads up, we enter this with high expectations between these two teams to have a very bloody battle, and as such you'd probably expect some of the higher priority team fighting champions to be banned out. So, what bans do we see? Well, TF, Galio and Thresh on the Golden Guardian side, they don't want to be picked off by 100 Thieves, and 100 Thieves removed the Tilia, the Panth and the Olaf. A lot of team fighting champions. Now, overall these bans make a lot of sense. A lot of targeted bans towards the mid lane by Golden Guardians, as well as the removal of the Thresh. I don't like Thresh being removed, but because he isn't that high priority anymore, I guess it does put a limit on the picks like the Jhin and the Aphelios, because there isn't that much safety available to them. But as a whole, it's not a good ban considering there's far better supports currently in the meta. The likes of the Seraphine, the Leonas. Them sorts of picks have a bit more agency in this meta, and as such I don't like this Thresh ban. As for the other bans from 100 Thieves, make a lot of sense really. All top OP picks that when they get through into pig phases usually are gobbled up quickly by the blue side and tend to have a very high win rate on these picks. Now it's time for the first round of picks. With Golden Guardians on the blue side, they immediately lock in for themselves the Lilia. Now they're putting priority onto this pick over the likes of an ADC, which is, I would say, kind of weird, because frankly ADCs, the likes of Kaiser, are very prevalent in the current meta, and you personally would want the Kaiser over a Lilia, although you're kind of saying to the enemy team, hey, we'll lock in the Lilia and we can technically then look for a AD mid or top laner or both and have a duality in damage up there and have a bit more of effectiveness for ganks. That's the sort of thing you'd like, but Lilia does allow that, whereas if you go for the ADC of your choice, say the Kaiser, you are then leaving up the ability for the enemy team to counter pick something that's a bit more strenuous, say a Aphelios, and technically with the Thresh being banned out as well, I would have honestly preferred Golden Guardians to actually have picked their ADC first and then gone for whatever jungler they wanted in the second rotation, because then they would have probably gotten a bit better off in terms of their draft. Anyway, enough moaning about the first pick, let's go over to the second picks of this game, which is the Kaiser and the Nidalee on the 100 Thieves side. I like this. Kaiser, very strong ADC, a lot of burst. Once she gets that collector into her kit, she pretty much will execute off a target with very little issues, because she can use her killer instinct to get to the backline. She goes for that repositioning mythic item, I've completely forgot the name of it off the top of my head, and alongside that with a Nidalee who's going to be just throwing in spears, it's going to be quite hard for Golden Guardians to essentially dodge all of these skill shots, the Void Seekers, the Javelin Toss, all going towards them. How are they realistically going to be able to dodge every single thing? So 100 Thieves basically are setting up high amounts of CC into their team comp. Response though from Golden Guardians is to go with their bot lane partner in the Aphelios and the Set. Now Set I like because it still is a big flex. It can go top, technically can go mid, though it's highly unlikely, and it can go support. It has a lot of power still as a pick because of the Gore Drinker being added into one of the main items for sets now, because they just use the Showstopper, get thrown into the back line of the enemy team, proc the Gore Drinker when they get very low, and they'll probably then have a full charge for their Haymaker, so they'll be pretty much full health with a massive shield, basically doing tons of true damage to the enemy team with that Haymaker. He is very powerful, though he isn't seen too often anymore because he's a bit more of a playmaking support than a top lane. Anyway, moving into the last pick of this phase, it's gonna be the Renekton. Now, you're probably noticing I've just skipped over Aphelios. I don't want to talk about Aphelios because I don't like the pick here, because he's very immobile as an ADC, and as such there's no real protection for him, and that's why I'm skipping over him quite heavily. This is because 100 Thieves have locked into Renekton. Renekton plus Nidalee is a true fire combo that we've seen since Worlds, if not before Worlds last year, and I'll be honest, it does a lot of work. Renekton has a lot of abilities that can just put someone stuck in place for a while. Nidalee can then toss the spear at them. They're going to take a chunk of damage and pretty much be executed off when the Nidalee jumps in with the Renekton to just burst them out. Plus, the Renekton has so much sustain in his kit. Calling Meat and Gore Drinker combination I've pretty much talked about every single one of these teamfight breakdowns because Renekton's so popular right now. He's very, very powerful. I'm amazed he isn't banned out more. And yeah, that's getting removed, well, getting put into play here for 100 Thieves, and I don't think Golden Guardians have done very well in this draft so far. Now we get into our second round of bans, and with there being a lot of questions on what Golden Guardians are going to put where, because that set is so ambiguous in terms of where he can be placed. I don't know how 100 Thieves were going to tackle this ban phase, and I'm surprised they go towards top lane bans and not support bans themselves to basically minimalize the pool for both players and leave very little in terms of safety options to any side. Because if I'm 100 Thieves right now, I'll be looking at this. You've got Nidalee, who's got movement tools in her kit. Renekton, who has movement tools in their kit. Kai'Sa has movement tools in her kit. Yeah, I would be thinking ban out supports, the likes of, say, a Seraphine. She's been picking up a lot more traction in the current meta. I'd remove maybe the Leona or a Nautilus as your last ban if you were 100 Thieves, but we don't get that. Instead, what we see is Golden Guardians removing the supports and 100 Thieves removing the top laners. And they're basically saying, well, we know that we've got a Renekton in the top lane. We technically don't know what you've got in the top lane. And if you go with that setup there, it's not going to do too well against it. And as such, they decide to ban out some safe options that the Golden Guardians could go towards. The likes of the GP and the Gnar, two big picks that we've seen realistically put into a Renekton. Obviously, Gnar has been played countlessly into Renekton, but I would prefer, instead of that GP ban, maybe the Gragas ban. And that's because it is also a big flex pick that could be played support, it could be played topside, and honestly would have been okay topside, even though there is a Lilia in the jungle. You still provide a lot more team fighting prowess with that explosive cask. You've got a stun in your body slam, and you also have tons of sustain. Once you get to the late game, you pretty much bully away Renekton if your team's able to keep a lead on the opponents, and that's why you kind of wish that it was maybe that Gragas ban. And the reason I say this is I'm going to point you towards LEC Week 1, Day 1, G2 Mad Lions this year. Wonders Gragas versus Armut's Renekton. It was a pretty dominant matchup for the Gragas. That's all I'm going to say. So, that's why I would suggest the Gragas ban coming through, but no, we get GP removed and Nah from 100 Thieves. Golden Guardians, they decide to ban out the supports. They remove the Leona and the Rel. Now, I like this. They don't like giving Huhi any sort of engage heavy supports. It's kind of what he's known for, really. And he can technically play enchanters. He used to be a mid laner, of course, so he has got some skills playing them. But I would honestly have liked to have seen maybe a ban. Actually, no, I don't like to see any other change to the bans there. Golden Guardians did a fairly good job in removing big picks from Huhi. And now our last round of picks come in for each team. This is where things get interesting. And honestly, you cannot be surprised if you see DeMonte piloting an assassin. He's known for these things, and well, he's going to get his hands on one in this game. He's got the Akali for himself. Big damage heavy champion. And this is a very nice thing because A, she has a lot of burst with her kit. B, she tends to do a lot of work and she's very, very safe in her laning phase now. And that is a huge thing. Obviously, energy is an issue on this champion because them Qs do tons in removing your energy. But nevertheless, you do get all your energy back on a kill/assist, and you get a little bit extra with the presence of mind. And overall, she's a very strong champion, does a lot of work, and can look at the actual Golden Guardians lineup here so far. Lilia, Aphelios, and Set. All champions other than Set, I would say all champions that are very, very squishy. Akali is going to have a field day on this game, ladies and gentlemen, and is probably going to tear up that backline. So, how does Golden Guardians finish out their draft? Well, Quinn immediately locked in. This is a big pick. And I say that because it is a hard counter to Renekton because you've got the extra range. Plus, she just bullies him in lane for a long time if she's able to. The only issue you'd say with her is she's not that very safe in terms of the fact that she can be pretty much executed off quite quickly by an Akali, and as a whole you would prefer maybe even a Malphite or an Ornn going into top lane for Golden Guardians because they can provide a bit more safety to the backline instead of the Quinn. And last pick for Golden Guardians, well, they take away the Alistar. This is huge in my opinion because that is a big pick that would have probably have gone through to Huhi in the bot lane, but essentially we see Golden Guardians shift up their draft yet again and pick up the Alistar. He can just knock away the Akali if she tries to jump into the backline with her ultimate. And that means that there's very safe protection for the Aphelios and the Lilia, who will be trying to put as much damage down for this Golden Guardians team in team fights. And last pickup of the game, well, it's the Gragas. I've already discussed why Gragas is such a big pick and why I would have preferred it banned out by either lineup, but I guess 100 Thieves kind of expected this sort of thing, I guess, if they left it open, because they probably thought, hey, Golden Guardians' bot laner cannot pilot a Gragas because he's got a set. Why don't we just leave it open? And we don't think that Gragas will go topside. I don't think their top laner can probably pilot it either. And that's probably the thinking on 100 Thieves side. And they just get a free Gragas who's gonna work incredibly well, I would say, with this lineup. And honestly, I kind of would have preferred the Gragas on the Golden Guardian side because the explosive cask can just knock the Akali out of her Shroud of Protection, Shroud of Twilight, and there you go, Akali is back visible and targetable again. Oh, she's gonna die quite quickly if she's not got protection. Yeah, so Gragas would have been good. I guess you could say Alistar could do the same, but it's a very finer margin in terms of execution in comparison to just chucking the explosive cask in the middle of the Shroud and Akali just being launched out of it. Anyway, draft's over and done with. Enough rambling on about why I feel that each team should have picked better. Let us get into this game where we'll be breaking down a team fight. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my class on setting up for the Dragon. Now, what do I mean exactly by setting up for the Drake? Well, essentially, in this play, we are going to be looking at two of these types of setups and how they essentially work.
Number 1, 2.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is using the Rift Herald to apply pressure to a point on the map, forcing the enemies to respond to the Rift Herald placement, thus giving you a numbers advantage over the Drake Pit area that you're trying to contest, as the enemy team's going to be forced to go respond to the Herald in order to stop either A, the turret falling, or B, a lot of damage being put down into a certain side lane, which will open up pressure on the map for the opposition if that turret falls. That's sort of the main reason why we see Heralds dropped at this certain point in the game, because it relieves some areas of the map that the enemy team can attack to try and force you to go to respond to, and it gives you basically an opportunity to go for the Dragon. Now, this isn't the only way to set up for a Drake. Let's get into the other method that we can see happening.
Number 2.
Now, this is the play from 100 Thieves. It's called Getting Picks, baby! Things get kicked off with the Fat Man's collapse onto Aphelios, casting him into a nice Void Seeker from Kaiser. Then the rest of the collapse from 100 Thieves comes crashing in, and Renekton roars into the battle, slicing up the Aphelios, stunning him in place, alongside the Killer Instinct from the Kaiser, immediately killing off the Guardians' ADC. But the Guardians decide to bite back a little, with Renekton going to night time. Set scoops up and power bombs the Renekton into the wall by the turret, giving over a trade kill to the Lilia. But that ends the fight in a 1-for-1 trade, and you're probably wondering, okay, so why am I bringing this up? Why does this allow the setup for the Drake? Well, because 100 Thieves have more carries alive, i.e. there's no Aphelios on the side of the Guardians, and they have both their main carries in their mid and their bot laners still alive. The only player they lost was their top laner, who wouldn't have provided too much, in essence, of power to killing the objective. They also have more damage, they have more map control, because they've literally just taken the Guardians, who were just crashing a Herald into the bot lane tier 1, forced them all the way back to their tier 1, forcing them to recall because they don't want to stay and get dove under that turret by the thieves. And in essence, there's a lot more pressure on the map for 100 Thieves at this point, meaning that they gain control over the Drake and pick up a free objective for themselves. Anyway, this was kind of a short and sweet Anarchy Analysis teamfight breakdown, but I felt this would be better to focus in on and explain map pressure and objective control as to when we see a teamfight breakdown again around a Drake and why it matters so much to create pressure on the side of the map instead of just going fighting 50-50 for a Drake. That's kind of the importance of this video. Anyway, that's going to be it. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're not if you want to, and I will see you guys next time for an Anarchy Analysis Super Week Team 5 Breakdown.